6th of 2021, were you the teacher in room 2026?
Yes.
Okay. That was an English class, correct?
Correct.
All right. And about how many students did you have in that classroom that year, approximately?
My class periods would vary in size anywhere from 15 to 20 students at a time.
Okay. And this was, I'm going to ask you about the morning of and what happened in your classroom, okay?
Okay.
So class started about 9 a.m., is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And did you keep your door locked?
Yes. District policy.
Okay, what was that?
District policy.
Okay, so all the teachers kept their door locked, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
How long had you been teaching up to that point?
11 years.
Okay. Did the policy of keeping the door locked change at some point?
No.
It was always like that?
As long as I've been teaching.
Okay. And for those of us that haven't gone to school in many, many years, let me ask you this. Do y'all have phones in the room?
Yes, ma'am.
Telephones?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you have other security measures to use to get help if you need it?
Yes.
What was that?
We have a panic button. It's located near the doorway of the classroom. And then you can use your personal cell phone if you need to call for
Okay.
help.
So when you use the panic button, where does it ring? Do y'all have security officers or what?
We do. We did have an officer on campus, but the security button rings to the front office, like the reception area, and the receptionist will respond.
Okay, so they'll come over the intercom
Yes,
and
ma'am.
ask you what you need?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so just because you push a panic button doesn't mean that officers start running to your room or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So let's go back to that morning. I'm going to ask you about two particular students. One is going to be Timothy Simpkins.
Okay.
Do you happen to see him in the courtroom right now?
I do.
Will you please describe where he's sitting and describe an article of clothing that he's wearing?
He's sitting to the left side of the room, my left side of the room, in a gray suit.
May the record reflect, Your Honor, that she identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
And the other student is Zach Selby. Both of those people were students in your class, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So on that particular day, was Zach late for class?
Yes.
Did he have to knock on the door in order to enter?
Objection leading, Your Honor.
Now it's overruled. You can ask questions.
Was there a knock at the door?
Yes.
And was it, in fact, Zach Selby?
Yes.
Did you let him enter?
I did.
Okay. At that time, was Timothy Simpkins sitting down in the classroom at his desk?
When Zach entered the room?
Correct.
Or before I opened the door?
Well, yeah, before you opened the door, were the students already sitting down and class was in progress?
Yes, ma'am. Class
Okay.
is in progress. Everybody's sitting.
Now, give me an idea about the layout of the classroom as far as where Timothy Simpkins sat.
So Timothy sat, it was diagonal from the doorway toward the back of the classroom.
Okay.
The classroom was really small, so it wasn't a huge distance.
Okay, so it's a small classroom.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And your desk would have been closer to the front of the classroom?
My desk was in the back to the right corner. So
Okay.
it was closer to where Timothy was sitting.
Okay, all right. And where did Zach sit?
Zach's assigned seat was in the front of the classroom near the door.
Okay. So as he entered, describe what you saw happening.
So when I opened the door, I saw Zach, and I had already started the first part of the lesson, and he was late. So I opened the door divider so he could walk past me. He looked at Timothy, and then he went straight toward Timothy, and Timothy got up out of his seat. And
Okay, let me stop you right there. When, from what you see, Zach is going towards the back of the courtroom, right? Classroom, sorry.
yes,
And at that moment, you see the defendant, Timothy, stand up.
correct.
Okay. And then what do you see?
They looked at each other. There weren't any words spoken, like, before the fight started. It was just like they knew that they were gonna fight, and
Okay.
Zach went to Timothy and he started hitting him.
Okay.
And right behind where Timothy sat, there was a whiteboard, and so like Zach shoved his body against the whiteboard,
Okay.
and then he slammed him closer to my desk, because my desk was over, like it was kind of like over to the side,
Okay.
and then so he slammed him over there.
And what
And
are
I'm
you saying?
yelling.
Hold on, let's not talk.
Let me ask you a question. Okay. What are you saying when you see that fight start? Are you saying
I was
anything?
yelling. I was yelling for Zach to stop
Okay.
hitting him.
Okay, hold on, both of you. Ms. Salinas, try not to talk even and okay over the witness. Make sure that you answer the question that's asked and then stop talking so that she can ask you another one, okay?
Okay.
Just so that we can write down everything y'all said. Ask your question again.
So you are yelling, stop.
Yes.
Then what happens?
And then at this point, like I walked toward them, and I hesitated because I didn't know how to get in between them. And so I'm still yelling, and Zach is swinging Timothy over near the bookshelf at this point, which is behind my desk off to the side. And so then I went and I pressed the panic button, and the receptionist came on, and I was trying to call for help.
Okay, dear.
She couldn't hear me. And so at this point, they're still fighting, and I didn't know what else to do, so I just opened the door and I started to yell for help. Like I just went in the hallway and just yelled for help. And then two of the coaches came down from the right side of the hallway, and then Mr. Pettit came from the left side to come in the classroom and to help to break up the fight.
Let me stop you right there. You said two of the coaches came.
Yes.
What are the coaches' names?
Coach Sarah Herrera, and then Coach Dean Boyd.
And then you mentioned a third teacher. Who's that?
Mr. Pettit, Karen Pettit.
So I'm going to back up a little bit. You opened your door
Yes.
and you began to yell for help.
Yes.
All of the students are still inside the classroom. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Which of the coaches arrives first? Do you remember?
I believe Coach Herrera came into the room first, but I don't remember for sure which one came in first.
Okay. As they come into the classroom, do you stay at the doorway?
Yes, I was at the doorway because when I went into the hallway to call for help, it wasn't just teachers who heard me, but other students in other classrooms. And so lots of people came to the hallway to see what was going on.
Okay. Is it unusual for other students to want to watch a fight that's going on?
No,
Is it unusual for them to want to videotape a fight?
no,
Okay, so you've seen that happen before.
yes,
Okay. So were there students trying to look around you or get into the classroom?
yes,
Okay. Was one of those students Charlie Johnson?
yes.
After Sarah Herrera, the teacher, the coach, comes in, who's the next coach or teacher?
Coach Boyd.
All right. From your viewpoint, are you watching what they're doing or are you watching the doorway?
So at this point, Coach Herrera, Coach Boyd, and Mr. Pettit are all into the classroom trying to break up the fight. I had kids, when the fight first started, the kids who were already in my classroom, some of them have pulled out their phones because they're just thinking it's just a fight. Not just a fight, but that it's a fight, and they want to see it and record it. And so that's what some of them were doing. But when I called for help and teachers and kids came out of their classrooms, there were kids who were trying to get into the classroom to record what was happening. So I was standing in the doorway trying to keep more kids from going in as they were trying to break up the fight.
Okay. So at any point, do you actually see what's going on in the classroom as far as who's breaking up which student?
I couldn't, because I was in the doorway, and I believe Coach Herrera was like on the side of the wall leading up to the doorway. No, I couldn't see her. But as I was trying to keep the kids from going into the classroom to record, I kind of looked over my left shoulder, and that's when I saw like the back of Coach Boyd's head, and he was walking backwards. And then I heard him yell, "No, no, no, gun."
Okay.
And then I ran.
When Coach Boyd was standing there and you saw the back of his head, was he closer to Zach Selby or closer to Timothy Simpkins?
I couldn't see.
Okay. But you hear him yell, "No, no, no, gun."
Yes.
Then what happens?
And then everybody just started to run. It was a blur. As soon as I heard it, I feel like I took off running, but it was like slow motion, and I could hear the gunshots start going off. And I ran into the classroom across the hallway.
Okay. Were other students also running besides you?
Everyone was running.
Okay. And when I say running, they're running.
For our lives.
Which classroom did you run into?
I ran into Miss Crochet's classroom. It was right across the hall. She's another English teacher.
Okay. Did you call 911?
I did.
Were you able to see before you did anything and the fight was still going on, did you see when Timothy Simpkins had fallen to the ground?
When he fell, no, I didn't see him fall to the ground.
You didn't? Okay. Did you ever see a weapon
No.
in his hands or anything?
I never saw.
Okay. About how many shots do you think that you saw?
That I believe I heard anywhere from 4 to 6, but I don't know.
Did you remain in that classroom?
In Miss Crochet's classroom, I did.
What was going on in that classroom?
When I ran into the classroom, everyone in the classroom had followed the protocol that we had, been taught. The lights were off. All the kids were under the desks. And Miss Crochet, she was kind of standing there. She was pregnant at the time. And she didn't really realize, I don't think, what had gone on. And I said to her, I was like, "Tila, like, get down. Like, they're shooting." And then I kind of paused, and I was like in shock. And it dawned on me, like, you need to call 911. So I went and I picked up the phone and I called 911. And I told them what was happening, that they were shooting.
You said there is a protocol in place at the high school. Is that a protocol for active shooter?
Yes.
So the teachers and the staff have training on what to do when there is a active shooter in the school?
Yes.
Can you describe the protocol for us?
So, if there's an active shooter, there will be an announcement over the speaker that we're on lockdown. But since, the front office didn't know yet, there wasn't an announcement. So everybody who heard it just knew what to do. So you have to turn off the lights, get under the desks, stay away from the doors, spin
if anybody tried to come into a classroom after it was in lockdown, was there a protocol about that?
Well, the doors were locked and you could not open the door for anyone.
You were not to open the door for anyone.
No.
Is it fair to say that there was absolute terror inside that classroom?
Yes.
And I see that you have teared up a couple of times, and it's been a while. Does this still affect you?
Yes.
After this happened, were you able to go back to teaching?
No.
Have you ever been able to go back into a classroom?
No, I haven't taught since that day.
You haven't taught since that day.
No.
Can you even drive by Timberview?
I can now, but I had to go through several months of therapy to be able to drive by.
Did you carry some guilt about what happened that day? Not justified, but did you carry some guilt?
Objection relevant, Your Honor.
What's the relevance?
Your Honor, it goes to the events of that day and what she might have done in the classroom versus what happened in the classroom. It goes back to the events of that day and her presence and impression of what happened in that classroom that day.
I'm sustaining as the question's asked.
May I approach Your Honor?
Okay.
Ms. Altman, I'm going to show you some photographs, okay? I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 141. Is that outside of your classroom?
Yes.
Are you depicted in this photograph?
Yes.
This photograph fairly and accurately portray the events of October the 26th, 2021.
October the 6th?
Yes. Okay. And I'm going to show you. State's Exhibit 127. State's Exhibit 125. State's Exhibit 126. I'm going to ask you if you recognize the individuals depicted in these three photographs that I've just shown you.
Yes.
And you can identify those photographs as being part of the events of October the 6th, 2021.
Yes.
Accurately depict the defendant in these photographs,
Yes.
and also Zach Selby.
Yes.
We'd offer 141, 126, 125, and 127 for all purposes, Your Honor. Showing them to defense counsel.
Any
Objection.
I'm sorry.
No objection.
I have 125, 126. What were the other numbers?
141, 126, 125, or 127.
All right. I'll admit 125 through 127 and 141 and you may publish.
Ms. Altman, I'm going to show you, say exhibit 141. Are you the person standing in the middle? I'm gonna hold it right here so the jury can see it. Are you this person right here in the middle?
Yes.
What's happening in this photograph?
That was at the point where other kids were trying to get into my classroom, and so I was standing out in the hallway to block them from getting in.
I'm going to show you State Exhibit 126. Who are the two individuals in this photograph?
Timothy Simpkins and Zach, the KSW.
Keep your voice up, okay? Who's the person on the ground?
That's Zach, the KSW.
Is this in the hallway right outside your classroom?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 127. Who is the individual depicted?
Timothy Simpkins.
The defendant in this courtroom.
Yes.
Does he appear to be pointing a firearm in this photograph?
Yes.
In the last photograph, State's Exhibit 125. Who is that individual?
Timothy Simpkins.
Does he appear to be placing a firearm in his waistband?
Yes.
House of witness.
Cross-examination.
Ms. Altman? To kind of take you back to when Zach first knocked on your door and you opened the door. You stated that he placed his backpack on the ground. Was that inside or outside the classroom?
Outside.
And that's why you thought that that was odd, that he put his backpack down?
Yes.
Did you have him pick his backpack up from outside and bring it in?
I told him to pick it up, but I don't believe he did. I'm not certain.
Okay. But he went right past you and straight to Tim.
Correct.
Who hit first?
Zach hit first.
And Tim actually did not hit Zach at all, did he?
Not that I saw.
In fact, throughout the fight inside the classroom, Tim was balled up trying to shelter his head. Is that right?
That's correct.
You saw when Zach slammed Tim's head onto the corner of the desk, did you?
I don't remember seeing him slam his head onto a corner of a desk, but I did see him slamming him around the room.
Okay. And when you opened the door to leave your classroom, at that point in time, do you recall that Tim was on the floor in a fetal position?
At that point, I wasn't watching the fight anymore. I was calling for help. So I don't know where exactly they were anymore at that time.
Okay. Can you describe the physical build of Zach?
Zach was probably like, he's taller than me. Maybe I'm 5'1". He's probably like 5'6", 5'7", muscular build.
When you testified that there was terror inside the classroom, who was that terror initially coming from?
Zach.
That picture that you were just shown with Tim placing a gun inside his waistband, was that before or after the fight?
After the fight, for sure.
You were pretty shook up, weren't you?
Yes.
How long would you say it took for you to just calm down from what you visualized?
On that day,